Welcome, everybody. It's Friday, April 28th. I am John Aravosis here with the Aravosis Report. Welcome to my show. We talk about the latest news from Ukraine, and then second half of the show, I take your guys' questions. But if they're super chat questions, we take them during the show as a thank you to you all. Let me get TikTok rolling here on my iPad, as always, and introduce yourselves. Say where you're all from, because I know we do it every day, but I think it's kind of fun. So there. Let me get TikTok. There we go. TikTok is rolling. Still can't scroll. TikTok's evil. That's okay. TikTok is playing games on old men and women now, trying to edit things so it's hard for us to read, but that's why we have reading glasses. Anyway, hello, everybody. How's everybody doing? Decent. We do not have a ton of news today. Today will be a good question day. There's news. I mean, there's some good news or important news, but not a ton. Yesterday was like ton of news day. Today is not ton of news day. Hey, James in Scotland, how are you? Woo! Fort Myers, Florida. Hey, Mark and Penny, or Marky and Penny. Anyway, if anybody's new, the way we normally do this is we wait about 2 or 3 minutes to start the show because TikTok and YouTube and the other services, I have to go live first before they notify everybody, and it usually takes about 2 or 3 minutes for folks to arrive. So I like to kind of just have people introduce themselves first, where they're from, and that way we can actually start with a pretty good number of folks. So anyway, it's Friday. Woo woo. I fly to Chicago tomorrow to see Ma, who had COVID the last 2 weeks, but is doing better. So my tea. So I will not be yawning at you, we hope, but who knows? Ireland. Hello, Ireland. Edinburgh. Edinburgh. Hello, Shirley. Was that Shirley in Edinburgh? Callum in Edinburgh, well, near Edinburgh, got me my Scotland mugs. So I'm using the Edinburgh one today. They're really pretty. I mean, they're Starbucks mugs, but they're really pretty. All right, another half minute, and we will get rolling, guys. As I said, not too busy of a news day today, but this is good because we'll give us lots of. And Vlad is with us today. I did not see. Oh, thank you for the disco ball there. Inspired. Thank you. Actually, what was going on with that? Let me look really quick here. Oops. Okay. Anyway, wasn't sure what that was about. Anyway, so let me get rolling here. So welcome everybody. John Aravosis, thank you for the gifts there. Who is that? Ocean lover. Ocean of love, I mean. I am John Aravosis. This is the Aravosis Report. This is my show that I do every day, Monday to Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern. And I go through the latest news from Ukraine, walk you guys through it. I guess my friend Vlad in Ukraine is here today. I thought I saw something flash by on the screen. Vlad, I don't know if did you have anything important to tell folks? If not, I'll just continue with the news. But since I saw you there, made me a little suspicious because I think Ukraine is 7 hours ahead. Thank you for the little, who did the gift there. Sorry. Thank you guys. Twitter, TikTok, I will tell you, TikTok did something really bad where they made it very difficult for me to see who's giving gifts now, which I apologize. So it's been very annoying. Thank you, Danny, for the cake there. So I apologize if I don't see all of your, I see the gifts, but I try to look for the names and I can't always see them because TikTok changed it. Anyway, hey guys. So the way the show works is the first half of the show, I will I'll give you guys the news. Second half of the show, I'll take your questions. Thank you, Victor, for the shooting stars. The way you guys ask questions on TikTok, go to my profile. You can hit the Q&A link and you can submit questions there. On YouTube, everywhere else, you can obviously use the button at the bottom. I do very much appreciate if you guys buy super chat questions or super stickers because you guys can, it helps me out, frankly, to support my work. Same thing with the gifts on TikTok. I will tell you really quick that, the Russian trolls decided to play a little game yesterday and get me in trouble with Patreon. So Patreon sent me a nasty little note because Patreon, you guys may know, has been playing all sorts of games with Ukraine creators. So I cleaned up my page for Patreon as they requested, but I'm no longer going to be sending people there. We are now going to be using Discord as our main place of accepting donations and contributions. It works the same way as Patreon in the sense that you set up a monthly payment. Thank you, great CFI. Discord's also free, by the way, our Discord community, but you can go and in my profile, go to the Linktree link in my profile, click through, you'll see Discord. If you click it, it'll now give you the options of how you can pay to subscribe. And there's 3 subscriber categories. Do not. You can always use PayPal. Yep, you can always use PayPal and all the other services. But I'm no longer promoting my Patreon. The links are gone because Patreon doesn't want us. So that's too bad. In any case, but you know what? As I always say, if you want to show the trolls up, the Russians who reported me and got me in trouble with Patreon, go to Discord right now and sign up for a subscription. If you want to show the Russians up. For you guys, it's at the bottom of the screen, Discord with a tiny URL. Actually, it's tinyurl.com/support John A, but you guys can find it in my profile. All right. You heard Putin surrendered. I wish Putin surrendered. Susan, very cute. Actually, Susan, you are one name actually that I was having a hard time switching you on the Discord. I'm going to stop at the Discord thing really quick so we can do the news. But in order to move Patreon over to Discord, I had to get the database. It was very confusing. And for several of you, like Susan, I couldn't actually find your account on the Discord to give you, your rank that you have because you're a Patreon subscriber. So if you want to reach out to me privately or with the moderators or whomever, and or right here, let people know your account name on Discord, I can add it. All right, let me go here. You guys, yes, and you guys absolutely, sorry, last question, and I promise I'll get going. Somebody asked, can I cancel my Patreon and pay on Discord? Oh, you certainly can. Yes, you can. You absolutely, positively can cancel your Patreon and sign up for Discord instead. How's that? All right. I'll talk about it more in a bit, guys, but I want to start the news. So the other thing I was going to say is Twitch. Just keep in mind, I know we've got several mighty Twitchers out there every day. We've got 10 or so today. I want you guys to think, because you'd mentioned about trying to monetize my Twitch account. The problem is Twitch requires an independent stream. I can't do Twitch the way I'm doing today, where I've got you TikTokers right here on my iPad. I've got YouTube and everything else over here. Twitch, it has to literally be an independent broadcast, from scratch, nobody else watching. I'm willing to do that, but I would only do it once a week. And if I do it, it means I can't beam you guys in on this broadcast. So I want you Twitchers to think about it. Maybe we'll talk about it next week. And we can discuss if I switch over to once a week on Twitch and if you guys are able to access this otherwise. But I wouldn't mind trying, because it would be kind of nice to finally get Twitch working for subscribers. All right, guys. So the big story today, there's a lot of news today. Today's the 428th day of Vladimir Putin's 10-day war in Ukraine. There is a lot of news today, but the biggest story really today, and it's a horrific story, is the Russians attacked a residential apartment building. They used high precision missiles to do it. They killed right now that we know of, 23 people were killed, civilians, including 4 children. They took off the entire side of a residential apartment building. It's in the town of Uman, which, interestingly enough, thank you, Louis, in a bad way, interesting, is 200 miles. That's like 300 kilometers from the front. Let me show you where it is, okay? This is the land that Russia's occupying in Ukraine, okay? Sorry, my map definitely needs to be tightened, needs a little facelift here. But this is the territory Russia occupies. The fighting that we hear about a lot is over here, okay? Bakhmut, the biggest fighting, is over here. Volodar, over here. It's all right here. So where did the Russians attack today? All the way over here in Uman. Look at this. This is where the heavy fighting is taking place. The Russians attacked all the way over here, deep into free Ukraine. There's nothing going on there. They claim that there were some reservists in the building, military reservists. So they just blew up the whole freaking building of civilians, because they thought maybe some reservists were staying there too. I mean, horrific story. I'm not going to go through all of them for you, but this is considered one of the worst civilian atrocities of the war that Russia has done. Right after the bombing, and they went after civilians all over Ukraine. Fortunately, the Ukrainians were. The problem here is the Ukrainians were very good at shooting the missiles down, but if you don't get every missile, some of the missiles get through, right? This is the problem. But immediately following the attack, the Russians went on social media and put out a message in Russian that said, "Right on target." This is who we're dealing with. Guys. They are absolutely the enemy. Somebody said Russia's not the enemy. They are the enemy. This is what those of us who are old enough had to deal with the Soviet Union. We watched the kind of evil the Soviets would do on a daily basis. Keep in mind, and the Soviet Union was mostly the Russians. I mean, it really was. It was made up of 15 republics, but some pigs are more equal than others. If you take the quote from George Orwell's 1984, the Russians were first among equals, very much first. They ran the entire freaking thing. Bucha's big, Carlos, but we're talking about bombings. In terms of the bombings, this was one of the largest civilian bombings. Thank you for the hat there. Sorry, I almost missed that. Thank you, Killers, for the hat there. Let me just go on a little bit. In terms of the other attacks today, the Ukrainians, 11 missiles and 2 drones were flown at Kyiv and were shot down, or I should say 11 missiles and 2 drones flying at Kyiv, the capital, were shot down. Ukrainian forces intercepted 21 of 23 Russian cruise missiles today as well. That's great. I said 1984, didn't I? Of course it's Animal Farm. I'm sorry. Thank you, guys. Obviously, if we're talking about pigs, it's Animal Farm. Sorry. My bad. In any case, I guess sort of the lesson there is that even if you have a good day and you get down, and the Ukrainians are now shooting down 80 to 90% of the Russian missiles. The problem is all you need is one to get through to take out a residential building like it did. Really bad. Russian forces did not make any confirmed gains today in or around Bakhmut, according to the Institute for the Study of War. That's good news. Bakhmut, as I was telling you, has been really the biggest fighting for the last several months. Bakhmut has also been the city that the Russians have been trying to get for almost 11 months now. It's a city of 60,000 people. Now the population, I'll let you guys see a little more there. Now the population is down to like a couple thousand. Strategically, the Ukrainians say it's important strategically. Folks in the West don't believe so. It's an important city to hit the Russians back because the Russians are at a disadvantage there and losing a lot of men. But it's not really that strategically important, at least from all the folks I read. Nonetheless, the Russians have been trying, losing a lot of men, losing a lot of equipment. And as of yesterday, they didn't make any advance at all yesterday. So there's no news from Bakhmut, but that's good because they're still wasting their weapons and wasting their manpower. Ukraine's defense minister said today that Ukraine's preparation, thank you, TikTok novice, Ukraine's preparations for an upcoming counteroffensive are coming to an end as the military undergoes training on Western-provided weapons. So the Ukrainians are putting out the message that they are almost done preparing for the counteroffensive. As always, take it with a grain of salt. 2 reasons here. One, it does not benefit Ukraine to well, let me put it this way. Sorry, I shouldn't say it doesn't benefit Ukraine. The only reason Ukraine will put out a statement about the counteroffensive is if Ukraine thinks putting out the statement benefits it, right? Now, that could mean the statement is false. It could mean the statement is playing games a little bit. But if Ukraine says we're almost done preparing and the counteroffensive is coming soon, that could mean the counteroffensive started yesterday. It could mean the counteroffensive is starting in 2 months, right? But I'm not calling them liars. It's quite the contrary. They are smart military strategists, and they're putting out messages in order to play games with the Russians, okay? So keep that in mind as far as trying to figure out when the Ukrainians are going to act. Actually, I was going to tell you, yes. Oh, this was interesting. Yeah. So along those lines about Ukraine preparing, Stoltenberg, you guys had mentioned that Supreme Allied Commander, or what is he called? Secretary General of NATO, Stoltenberg, had repeated the claim. Thank you for the gift there. Who is that? Jesse James. Thank you for the gift there. Had repeated the claim from our Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, Cavoli, I think is his name, General Cavoli, that 98% of the heavy weapons of the vehicles have already arrived in Ukraine. Stoltenberg gave a little more detail, which I had not realized. Thank you, Tom Clark, for the marvelous confetti. I love that. It's not just confetti, it's marvelous confetti. Listen to this, as far as Stoltenberg saying what weapons have arrived. So NATO and its partners have delivered over 98% of promised combat vehicles to Ukraine. Thank you, Magical Photo. 98% of promised combat vehicles to Ukraine, totaling over 1,550 armored vehicles, 230 tanks, and other unspecified equipment. Now, what's interesting to me, well, a couple things. I mean, we shouldn't downplay the armored vehicles because For example, we were talking about the Bradley fighting machine and other fighting vehicle and other things that the U.S. and others are sending. Thank you. I'm your mom for the hat there. We were talking about how General Hertling, among others, was saying, don't just focus on tanks. A lot of the other heavy vehicles, the armored vehicles we are sending the Ukrainians are really important. And he mentioned the Bradleys, which he said they're gonna make a huge difference, even though people are talking about tanks. Nonetheless, the tank number was interesting to me because we've been kind of going back and forth hearing different numbers about how many tanks have actually arrived. Hang on, I'm gonna put my fan on my air conditioning because it's been raining all day and it's humid and it just keeps going back between comfortable and balmy. I'm going to take my jacket off. I'm back to balmy again right now. 230 tanks. Okay. It's not the worst thing ever. I will tell you from at least, again, looking at sort of all the defense experts that I read for the while now, they've been saying, 50 to 150 minimum. They really would have liked 300 to 500 tanks. Now, this was several months ago, so that could have changed. Thank you, Kathy, for the flowers there. That could have changed, but 250 is not a bad number, at least from what I was seeing all the defense experts talking about. It's a decent number. Better if it were 500. Also, thank you, Marcy, for the cap, and Carmel for the hat as well. You also have to consider what I warned you about the Ukrainians being the same thing with Stoltenberg, who's our top guy at NATO. Why would Stoltenberg want to put out the exact number? Thank you, Harold, for the hat, the mustache there. Why would Stoltenberg want to put out the exact number? I mean, because we always talk about this ourselves. And honestly, once the war is over, I would love to get a straight answer on this. Thank you, Carmelate, for the hat again. And Iggy for the sail away. That's one of my faves. But you know what I mean? Like we often ask ourselves this and say, why do we keep talking about exactly how many weapons are there? My hope would be that we're lying, that we're trying to, confuse the Russians. Whether it's saying too many or whether it's saying not enough, that I don't know, right? I mean, whether we're lying up or lying down, so to speak, I don't know. But I'm hoping that we've got a lot more tanks than 230, and maybe we do. Over 100 Ukrainian service personnel have started training on Leopard 1 battle tanks this week, according to the German defense minister. That's good. You'll recall, so the big issue with tanks was, just to sort of take you back, Leopard 1, Leopard 2. Sorry, quick sip of tea here. I also kind of ran out of food because I'm traveling tomorrow, and I made pancakes for dinner. And I never realized, because I don't normally do pancakes and then do a show, eating pancakes is like drinking caffeine. The sugar from the syrup, I can feel I'm trying to slow down so that I'm not just flying with you guys. But I never realized pancakes could give you a high, so to speak. Usually it's the morning when I'm sleepy. When I'm sleepy. In any case, it's making me laugh. So the tanks. The issue with the tanks was, take us back to January, okay? And remember in January, there was a big effort by a lot of us to get Germany to approve speaking. That was very cute, Alan, the pancake. That made me laugh. That was cute. There was a big effort in January by a lot of folks, and I would say the Brits had a pretty key role in this. The French were pretty good too in trying to pressure the Germans to approve their Leopard tanks going to Ukraine. And the issue was Germany has some of these tanks. Thank you, Louis, for the heart. Germany has some of these tanks, but Germany has sold like 2,000 of these tanks all over Europe. And the idea was, if those European countries want to either give or sell or whatever those tanks to Ukraine, they've got to go back to the country that made them, because that's the way defense sales work. It's sort of it is exactly the same thing that the U.S. does. If we sell our weapons to somebody, Israel, let's say we sell weapons to Israel, we don't want Israel turning around and selling our weapons to somebody else that we don't agree with, right? So whenever countries sell weapons, they always put as part of the agreement that the original country that sold the weapon has to approve any I'll use the word regifting, any regifting of the weapon to a third party, whether it's by sale or gift, the original country has to approve. So Germany had to approve for these Leopard tanks to be given by any of the other countries in Europe to Ukraine. They were Leopard 2 tanks. Those were the good ones, the new ones. Well, we subsequently found out, the Germans said, I believe, that there were a lot more Leopard 1s available than 2s. I'd asked you guys previously, and you said the Leopard 1s are still very good. I believe the Leopard 1s are from the mid-'80s, perhaps, or so. They're still very good, you guys said. I think you said maybe they differ in armor and some of the guns they use, but nonetheless, they're very good versus the Russian tanks, which is good. So these are the Leopard 1 tanks, and the Germans say that there's 100 Ukrainian service personnel starting the training. Now, thank you, Alex, for the pancakes. I will say this. If we're on the verge of starting the Ukrainian counteroffensive, I'm not terribly thrilled that we've just started training them on the Leopard 1s, right? My hope is that we were already training a lot more. Again, this could be disinformation again. Think about this. The Germans could be telling the truth. Maybe we are just, or the Germans are just starting to train 100 Ukrainians on how to drive the Leopard 1 tanks. That doesn't mean that they haven't already trained 300 Ukrainians previously, right? Because otherwise, I'd be a little worried that we're waiting till now to start training these guys on these tanks. That sounds a little weird to me, right? I mean, let's face it, the decision was made in January on these tanks. But in any case, hopefully it's, again, a little bit of disinformation. Thank you, BJ Gator Girl. I should say disinformation. The Germans could be telling the truth, but they're hopefully playing with the truth a little, making it sound like the Ukrainians are only beginning training when in fact it would be, no, we are training 100 of them, but guess what? We already trained 300. That's my hoping here. Actually, Otan Bot is saying they're trained for sure. That's what I'm assuming. They couldn't have waited this long to just start training. All right. So yeah, let me do my quick pitch for Discord. Oh, thank you, Alan. That was very sweet. The gift, actually, that's a really nice gift. I know. Thank you very much for that. Oh, wow. That's like a 3 gift in one. Jesus, Alan. Thank you for that so much. Wow. Like, really, thank you. That was very cool. Well, because I recognize each individual gift was really generous, let alone didn't even know you could package them together. Thank you for that. Wow, thank you. So yeah, I will do another quick pitch for my Patreon. Not my Patreon. No more Patreon. No more Patreon. I will leave the folks that are already on Patreon. If you subscribe and support my work, and again, I mentioned this because I do this full time. When the war broke out, I decided to use my background in internet politics, which I've been doing for 30 years, in foreign policy. I have master's from Georgetown. I have a law degree from Georgetown as well, a JD. I've worked around the world. I've worked for the United Nations. I've worked in the US Senate. I've worked on arms control issues. I speak 5 languages. I've done work in God knows how many countries. And I decided, you know what? I think I have the ability to take the news and hopefully digest it for people on a daily basis, tell them what I think matters, like read all the experts, basically tell them what I think matters, and then kind of hopefully using my politics background, get beneath the news and give you a sense of what's actually going on, which we get to at the Q&A period, right? A little bit more. Well, because I'm doing this full time, thank you for the happy Friday there. You guys are being very generous today. Thank you, Harold. Because I do this full time, it's my job. And just like you guys, I got to pay the bills with my job. And I pay the bills via you guys. You're the ones who support me. So thank you so much for that. I was using Patreon, and I was trying to build up my Patreon, which is a way that you can pay every month, basically a subscription, to build it up, because it would be really nice to build something like that up. Thank you, Leslie, for the confetti. And Patreon wrote me this morning and said they were very concerned because they heard that I was supporting Ukraine, that I was doing things supporting the Ukrainian military and and they freaked out. And they've done this, Zito Elada, I agree with you, Symfono, Grigorios. And they've done this to a lot of other Ukrainian creators as well. And you know what? It's not worth fighting with them. It's their platform. They can do what they want. I'm not happy. I did what they want. I disconnected my Discord entirely. So my Discord is not connected now. My Patreon is only to support my journalism now, nothing else. That's what they asked. So that's fine. But I am no longer pushing people to Patreon. I'm asking folks now to just go to my Discord. Discord has a new setup where you can get paid subscribers on Discord. It's a whole cool thing. I've set it up already. You can find it in TikTok. You go to my profile, click the link that says Linktree, and you look for Discord, click it, and you'll see. It gives you the options of, well, you can go for free anyway to Discord, but if you want to support my work, I'd appreciate it. For you guys, the link's at the bottom of the screen, tiny URL, because the link was way too long. Or just go to aravosis.com. That as well will give you the links to all of my stuff. But if you can, I'd appreciate it, guys. I'm treating this as the new Discord for me. Discord always has had a subscription, yes, but it was a relatively recent thing that it got offered to me, and I finally decided to do it. Thank you for the train there. So really quick, was that Happy Beach? Thank you, Happy Beach, for the train. Discord's fee is slightly better probably than Patreon. Patreon's combined fees are maybe 13%, 15%, I forget. Discord's is 10%, but I don't know what the transaction fee is when I try to actually pass the money along. Now, let me give you guys a tip. Okay, TikTokers especially, but anybody out there, listen to this. This is a money tip for you guys. We already knew on TikTok, and this is because I now know it's because of the Apple Store. We already knew on TikTok that when you buy gold or whatever it's called, when you buy coins, the thing you use to pay for gifts, if you buy it on your computer, you will get a lot more or a lot cheaper than buying it on your phone. And the reason is when you use your phone, you're using the Apple Store, and the Apple Store takes 30%. So TikTok raises the price 30% in order to basically defray that cost. When you do it on your computer, it doesn't go by the Apple Store. You're doing it via the website. So what I found was a similar thing happens with Discord. At least I've been warned that a similar thing can happen with Discord. If you are buying a Discord subscription with me or anybody else, please consider doing it on your computer if you can, just to make sure, because it won't tell. Like, actually, Roshan was showing me that she had subscribed. She had moved her subscription over from Patreon, and it showed the lowest category as $10.99. And I said, $10.99 is not the lowest category. The lowest category is $7.99. And I went, oh God, that's what it is. So, and Android too. Android, I don't even know. Android, Discord might not let you pay via Android. I was reading something. They may not allow that yet. I don't know why. In any case, yes, it is called server subscriptions. You will see it at the top of, actually, I'm going to show you guys on my Discord, if you're already a Discord member, and then I promise we're going to get back to work right after this. Here you go. So this is my Discord. If you see, look at the number 3. There's my face, invite, events, browse channels, server subscriptions. You guys, the same thing. My face, invite, events, browse channels, server subscriptions. That's where it is. But the easiest way, just go to aravosis.com. It's the easiest way. Aravosis.com. It's just like the link tree in my profile. It links all my stuff. I put the Discord link there, and that Discord takes you to the page that shows you all the options for subscribing. So anyway, I'll stop doing that, but I would appreciate if you guys would. And if you've got Patreon subscriptions, please move them over. You can just cancel on Patreon and set it up on Discord. So if you could. Yep, that's what I thought, Jamie. Thank you. Yep, that's what I was told. For some reason on Androids, you can't use the Android phone to set up the subscription. You have to do it on the web, on a computer on the web, and then you can use your phone, obviously, to access Discord. You just can't pay via Android. All right. Let's go, guys. If you cannot subscribe via mobile, use a computer, Roshan's saying. Okay, yeah, that's the thing. Yep. If the mobile is giving you a hard time, just use a computer. All right, let me keep going, but please do help out if you can, guys. I know it's a bit of a pain and it's a bit confusing, but it's important. So thank you for this. Anthony has a super chat question. When is enough for the West to say Russia is way out of control? It's sad to see all the devastation going on in Ukraine. I agree, Anthony. I mean, the thing is, all right, I do not agree with Joe Biden on all of this stuff. I think Biden is unnecessarily afraid of Putin. But if you're Biden and if you think Putin is, just itching to go to nuclear war, the fact, and Biden has said this, that if we go to war with Russia, it's World War III, Biden said, right? It's the end of the world, he said. If you believe that, then you will do everything possible. I do take PayPal. You can find it via the aravosis.com link. Bash, just go check it out. Aravosis.com brings up all my links. You'll find PayPal. Thank you for asking. Sorry, we got a lot of stuff here. All right, guys, and thank you, Harold, for the swing. If you're like Biden, and I mean, I'm saying, like, I disagree with Biden, but he's not stupid. I understand his thinking here, even though I think he's very wrong. If you think Putin is itching for nuclear war, if you think any battle between America and Russia will lead to nuclear war, then you're going to do everything to stop that battle. It doesn't matter if Russia blows up civilians in Ukraine, because blowing up civilians in Ukraine, really bad. Worse, everyone on the planet dying in a nuclear war. So the problem is Biden's thinking, his analysis, I think, precludes Putin ever going too far, other than Putin possibly using a nuke. And even Putin using a nuke, I still think this is why I've said I think Biden puts us in a very dangerous position here, because, we've sent out this message that, if Putin uses a nuke, it'll be catastrophic. Really? Because here's my thinking. A fly in the wall of Biden's White House. Putin uses a nuke in Ukraine, and someone's going to go, well, Mr. President, you believe that any confrontation between America and Russia, military confrontation, will automatically go nuclear and we'll all die. So if Putin uses one nuke in Ukraine, why would we want to enter the war if it means we're all going to die? Isn't one nuke in Ukraine better than us entering the war and the whole world dies? Like, there is no threshold ever to us entering the war and stopping this, right? I've told you, even Putin nukes New York. Well, nuking New York is better than the whole world getting nuked if we respond. I mean, couldn't you see the logic? And this is my problem. And I wish the press or somebody would hold the administration to this, because, from my perspective, we are dealing with the Soviet Union. We are dealing with the Soviet Union level of evil. We are dealing with, they're not Nazis, right? I mean, I get that, right? And I don't like it when people always make those comparisons, but we are seeing some of what they're doing is on an equal level, right? Stealing the children is absolutely on an equal level. Certainly targeting civilians, like literally making your strategy in the war be, I'm going to kill as many civilians as possible. That's like the bad guys in history. I think at some point, and again, look, I'm more of a hawk on this. I always have been. Thank you, Mandashi. It's funny because my politics can be very liberal in America, meaning left, but not on foreign policy. On foreign policy, I have always been quite conservative. I don't even want to say conservative. It's actually kind of funny. My background in politics, a lot of it has been doing human rights work, civil rights work. In domestic, we call it civil rights work over the last 30, 40 years. But it's the same reason I get pissed off at the Russians. I don't like bullies. And I think even when it can put you at risk, your career is something else, somebody's got to stand up. And I've pissed people off before too, by people not standing up and doing the right thing. And I would yell at them and say, you're a wimp. You don't not stand up and do the right thing. So I feel the same way on civil rights. I mean, ironically, if not ironically, but for me, this Ukraine thing fits into the same package. It's watching evil, and not just watching evil, but watching evil destroy human beings and people not having the courage to step up and do something about it. And anyway, pisses me off, obviously. All right, let's keep going here. Speaking of tanks, this is a great story. Actually, wait, let me tell you really quick. The Spanish defense minister confirmed that 6 German-made Leopard 2 tanks are already in Poland and are being transported by rail. Excellent. Oh, I'm sorry. And I did have a few more of the super chats here. Yes, Bash Brannigan, as I said, I do take PayPal. You can find it via the link in my profile on TikTok. Thank you for the gamer cat there, Serenity, or via the aravosis.com link. Joe McKinnon says, I've canceled Patreon, John, left a sarcastic remark. Now I've got to figure out Discord. Of course, I'm on Android. Then do it from your computer. Just use the tiny URL that I've got on the screen. Actually, go to aravosis.com. That's the easiest. If you can, I sort of refrain from telling you guys to use that link because it's my last name, which I think can be kind of hard. If you can figure out my last name, aravosis.com, I bought the URL. I direct it to my link tree, to my page of links. So aravosis.com will take you to a page where Discord's the first thing. Click it, and that's how you get the options. Do it on your computer, and you're fine. So there you go. Thank you for that, and thank you for the sarcastic remark. Not to me, I mean to them. Hang on, Danielle O'Neill. How are you? Irish Prime Minister expressed condolences for an Irish. Oh, I did hear about this today. I didn't mention it. I'm sorry to the Irish folks out there. I don't always mention, individual foreign nationals that are killed, but yes, I did read that I did read that. Yes. Irish Prime Minister expressed condolences for an Irishman killed fighting for Ukraine. The Russian embassy, the Orc embassy in Ireland, said if Irish Prime Minister's remarks signify support for taking part in combat, then Ireland is a direct participant with ensuing consequences. Again, what consequences? Right? I mean, basically they're threatening war on Russia, on Ireland. Really? I mean, really? Now, actually, you guys tell me something, because I thought you all were telling me the other day, or actually maybe we were talking about it privately, that it just didn't really make sense to me because of the history. But Britain, I mean, like Ireland benefits from Britain's protection or something, you guys were saying, and it kind of confused me. You know what I mean? Like if the Russians were to attack Ireland, would the Brits respond? I mean, in principle, they might respond because they're right next door, but you know what I mean? But some of you had mentioned that, and I just was kind of curious. Because we were talking about it before. Yeah, a number of folks are saying yes. Okay. Because, if that's the case, I mean, no, Northern Ireland, I know, but I'm talking about them going after, Dublin or something, right? They bombed Dublin. The Brits are going to get involved. Of course, God knows the Irish, exactly. You don't want to piss off their women, and you don't want to piss off their fishermen. The rest of Ireland, I don't know well, but I know Irish women, not just you, Roshan. I had a roommate as well. Sorka was amazing. Damn, that woman was amazing. And we all know the Irish fishermen. The Irish fishermen are amazing. This is what Russia does. They're bullies. And they're not just bullies. They're weak bullies, right? I mean, again, I realize it probably wouldn't be smart for Ireland to do this because it doesn't help, but you almost want to see Ireland turn around and go, really? Like what? Because the Russians say, the ensuing consequence. They don't say, really? What? You're going to steal I would have loved it. You're going to steal our children too? Right? You're going to kill our elder? You're going to rape our women and 4-year-old girls too? Really? Good luck with that. I mean, the Russians, actually, the other point, and I raised this the other day, why isn't Russia doing it already? I mean, there haven't been any consequences. What consequences, right? Remember they did it to the U.S. yesterday. I was reading the comment from the Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman who said, what was it? If the U.S. impinges on our vital national interests, basically threatened they're going to use nukes. And she goes, and then the next line, she goes, and the U.S. has been repeatedly doing it. And you're like, well, if you're going to go nuclear, if the U.S. impinges, if you're telling me you're going to go nuclear, if we impinge or infringe on your vital interests, and then you say, we've been repeatedly over the last year impinging on your vital interests, and you didn't go nuclear, then clearly you're not going nuclear if we impinge on your vital interests. I mean, and the same thing with Ireland. Like, well, okay, where are the consequences then? Oh, is it next time? Is that, I mean, it's always a, they are, as I said, they are narcissists, and they are narcissists with an inferiority complex. They want the world to respect them, but they know they're not that strong. So they sit there, and all they do is so all they do is this bravado, the Russians, with the, we're going to declare war, but also they're not very socially adept in an international sense, so that they don't realize how weak they sound at the same time, which is what kind of amazes me too. We hear those statements, and I laugh when I read these statements going, oh, really? Again? Right? I mean, but to them, they're like, oh, we showed them, we put out another scary statement today. And you're like, guys, like, get with the rest of the world. You sound just weak and silly. Anyway. All right. Speaking of tanks, oh, this was a great story. A Russian colonel was arrested on suspicion of stealing 7 T-90 Russian T-90 tank engines worth $258,000 or 234,000 euros, and selling them on the black market. The T-90 is one of Russia's more modern tanks, and the guy in charge of the tanks in like part of Ukraine or wherever it was, or in Russia, just decided to steal the engines and sell them. Which also means that there's, I forgot, I think it was 8 or 10 tanks he did this to, which also means 8 or 10 of Russia's top tanks they wanted to use for the war didn't have engines, they found out. I mean, and you wonder, the thing is, you wonder how much of this, we don't hear about and they don't even know. Because if this guy's doing it, he's not the only one to do it, right? So who else did it? How many of their tanks are in this condition? Thank you, Dee, for the marvelous confetti. It just made me laugh. The Caesar self-propelled howitzers pledged to Ukraine by Denmark are already in use by the Ukrainian military, according to the defense minister. This is a wild update. It's funny. I said I didn't have much news, and now I'm going to keep going here. There's a lot more stories here. Listen to this. So actually, make sure I didn't miss anybody. There we go. Okay. So listen to this. Remember the Amnesty International report from a few months ago that pissed everybody off? Sorry, my allergies are going nuts here. That really pissed everybody off because Amnesty was saying that the Ukrainians were putting civilians at risk by housing military and civilian structures. And basically, the Ukrainian military was fighting block to block in cities that Russians were taking over in the east. And at night, they would sleep like in abandoned schools. It was winter. They had to sleep somewhere. They didn't have barracks. It was a town that the Russians had taken over, right? And Amnesty was complaining that, that put civilians at risk. Everyone went nuts on Amnesty, understandably. I believe the Amnesty Ukraine person had actually expressed concerns about the report that they ignored, and that she ended up quitting. But listen to this, New York Times today. So Amnesty gets a ton of blowback from that report. Everyone's pissed at them, right? Privately, I guess, Amnesty decides to have an independent review of the report. And the independent review gets finished months ago. Amnesty doesn't tell anybody. Guess why, right? So this review finishes months ago. Amnesty sits on it. Listen to this. Amnesty International's board has sat, the New York Times, has sat for months on a report critical of the group after it accused Ukrainian forces of illegally endangering civilians while fighting Russia, according to documents and a person familiar with the matter. Now, following criticism, Amnesty International's board commissioned an independent legal review of whether the substance of what it said was legitimate. Now, the conclusions from the report are the following, okay? The report concluded that it is legitimate when investigating war crimes to look at the oppressor and he who is being oppressed. So in other words, thank you, Chaz, or Chazak for the sunglasses. In other words, it is legitimate to look at the war crimes of the invader, but also the war crimes of he who has been invaded. Fair enough, right? Because neither side is supposed to commit war crimes. Fair enough, right? So the report says that. Mind you, you don't need to pay an outside legal expert for that. Everybody knows that, but fair enough. But listen to this. It says, so it is entirely appropriate for a rights organization to criticize violations by a victim of aggression, quote, provided that there is sufficient evidence of such violations. But the review panel nevertheless unanimously concluded that Amnesty International had botched its statement in several ways and that its key conclusions that Ukraine violated international law were, quote, not sufficiently substantiated by the available evidence. This is really bad. I mean, it's not just a matter of Amnesty not coming forward and being honest with us. Their report is out there. Amnesty issued a report criticizing Ukraine, okay? But Amnesty didn't want to put the report public that says, oh, by the way, what we said was BS, right? The independent legal review said our report had no legal basis, that there was not sufficiently substantiated by the evidence. How do you not, I mean, that is just, that is dishonest, right? You are in, I mean, this is a lie. I'm sort of a big believer in the word lie having many permutations. And when it's a lie by omission, basically, you're leaving your report out there. You're leaving people think that your report is real. And you know privately that the independent review found that your report was wrong. Your report was wrong. There wasn't any evidence, or there wasn't sufficient evidence to accuse them of a crime. And you're not going public and making that, you're not putting a correction. So you're leaving the lie out there for people to think about Ukraine. I mean, Jesus Christ. That's just, I mean, I can't even, and the New York Times had to discover this because somebody must have leaked it to them. Amnesty was never planning on telling anybody. It's really freaking bad. I mean, my God. But no, so I will say this too. Ukrainians were right. Ukrainians flipped out and said, this was wrong. There's no evidence. And they were right. Man, but again, this is what bothers me, though. It's not just that they got the report wrong. That can happen. I mean, we were pissed at them, but that can happen. But once their own independent review said that this report was false, basically false, meaning there was insufficient evidence to accuse them of a crime, that Amnesty didn't let people know that fact. So they let the lie stay out there, which also, by the way, here's the problem with that. How many other Amnesty International reports are now fake and we don't know it? They know it, but we don't know it, right? I mean, that's what happens when you do stuff like this. When you start to lie, nobody really knows what the truth is anymore. Oh, boy who cried wolf, but just as bad in this case. Anyway, thank you for the hat there, Leslie. Slovak and Czech presidents were in Ukraine today for a surprise visit. By the way, I learned if you go to the post office and try to send something to the Czech Republic, they won't know what you're talking about. The American post office now only has Czechia in the computer. And I tried to send something to Kapis, our wonderful friend here. He won one of the auctions. And she goes, oh, that's that place we can't send things to. And I went, what are you talking about? It's in the middle of Europe. What do you mean you can't send things? She goes, I don't know why. And she says to me, she goes, is it possible it's called something else? And I said, yeah, Czechia. She types it in. She goes, there it is. So they got rid of the idiots got rid of Czech Republic in the machine, and they're only calling it Czechia, when I guarantee you, I'm not the only American that knows it's called Czechia, but there aren't that many. There just aren't that many Americans that would go, Czechia. I mean, anyway, this word to the wise if you're ever having to message somebody in the Czech Republic. The European Commission reached a deal with 5 European Union countries over Ukrainian grain exports. The countries are Poland, Hungary, Bulgaria, Romania, and Slovakia. I'm not going to go through the whole story, but basically there was an issue where how the Russians are playing games with the Ukrainian grain exports by sea, okay? Ukraine has been exporting grain by land as well through Europe because they need to for money. And it started causing problems with grain sales across Europe because there was a glut of grain because of the Ukrainian grain, and basically cheap Ukrainian grain. So it was causing all sorts of problems for the European farmers, who then started rising up. And there were problems, like I said, in Poland. I'm trying to think of what was the other, actually, well, all of those countries, but Poland in particular was the first one where the people got really pissed off. So some kind of a deal's been reached. Among other things, there's something like $100 million or 100 million euro fund that is going to be going to the farmers in those other countries. So at least this is good because it helps the farmers. It helps smooth relations between Ukraine and its neighbors, but it also helps the Ukrainian farmers continue to send their stuff out, which is great. The United States has asked Brazil to extradite an alleged Russian spy charged last month by the Justice Department for carrying out espionage operations against the West while posing as a foreign student in Washington, D.C. Remember this guy? This guy, there was a story in the Post, I think like about a month ago, and his name is Sergei Cherkasov. He's serving a 15-year prison sentence in Brazil. He's the guy who came here, didn't go to Georgetown, not my fault. He went to Johns Hopkins, which has a similar international studies program, graduate school, very good, here in D.C., and from Johns Hopkins. And he was pretending to be Brazilian, and he was actually one of those, what do they call them? The sleeper agents, but I forget what they call them, irregulars. There's another word for them that we use as well. Basically, the Russian spies who are in such deep cover that they spend their lives living as another nationality so nobody knows. Like the TV show The Americans, literally. He was a Russian. So they got him, threw him in jail. There are sleeper agents, but there's another, there are regulars. There's a third word that's used for it. It doesn't matter. It's fine. But what is interesting with this is, think about this. The U.S. wants to extradite him. We want to bring him here to charge him. In a way, it's good. Unfortunately, what I think it means, Dave Wilkins says prisoner exchange for George Santos. No, but I think it's going to be prisoner exchange for the journalist, the Evan I'm not going to get his last name correctly. The Wall Street Journal journalist Evan, and possibly Paul Whelan, who's the American citizen who is also still stuck in Russia, in prison there. It's unfortunate that we have to keep releasing innocent people in exchange for guilty Russians, but that's where we are. Final story, crackdown continues in Russia. Putin just signed a law on Friday that could put those convicted of treason in prison for life. The previous penalty for treason was 20 years. Putin just upped it to life, possible life. Again, it's the crackdown on dissent. He's trying to do everything he can to scare people into basically being good Russians, which also shows he's afraid too. All right, let's do questions, folks. Let's jump. All right, I will start with the questions on TikTok. Remember, on TikTok, you go to the Q&A link on my profile. The rest of you obviously can use the bottom of the screen. Feel free to keep using super chat questions and gifts on TikTok. Hang on here. Let me look. TikTok Q&A. I've got my glasses on. Actually, make it easier. Boop. Thank you for the hat there. Who is that? Jetta Mom. Thank you. I don't know who that is. Sorry, but Roger is saying you should read about Pavel Peter Gojik or something like that. He is an inspiration. Who is he? Don't know. Oh, that was cute. Gus the Groundhog. Thank you, pediatric nurse, for that, and Stephen for the flowers. It just caught my eye. I was like, groundhog. Interesting. Okay, very interesting. So did you see Russian state media wants Russia to help the Native Americans in the U.S. take back their land? No way. Ron Schneider saying that. I mean, it's typical of them, actually. It's the kind of thing the Russians do. The Russians like to go. There was actually a really interesting article I was looking at yesterday, and Washington Post or New York Times, I think, and it was the anatomy of how Russians. It's what they were doing to Germany. Was it Germany that they were doing it in? It was some country in Europe, and it was showing sort of the anatomy of the effort they did to try to destabilize the country and how they go after, marginal groups on the fringes, on the left and the right, and this kind of stuff. So I'm not surprised. Yeah. And the thing too that they don't get is the whole issue. This again shows how I think the Russians also don't understand our country. What happened to the Native Americans, the Indians, as we used to call them, was horrible. It's also not a burning issue in our country. Bringing it up does nothing, right? It's just not a burning issue. Maybe it should be, whatever, but it's not. So when the Russians bring it up, it's not like, oh my God, hot fire issue. What are we going to do? The Russians have touched the Native American issue. It's going to explode politically. People are going to sit there and they're going to laugh and go, what? It's just not, but they don't understand our country. So they actually think like, oh, this is causing big trouble for Biden now that Putin has mentioned this. It's like, not really. Otanbat says Pavel Peter Gojik or Gojish or something was a Slovak Greek Catholic bishop who defended the rights of the Greek Catholic Church and opposed the fascist and communist regimes in Slovakia. He provided shelter to Jews during World War II and was imprisoned for 9 years. Thank you, Happy Beach, for the hat there. Was imprisoned for 9 years, enduring torture and solitary confinement. Gojish, or I'm going to say Gojish, I don't know. Help me there. Was beatified in 2001. Oh, wow. And is considered a martyr for the faith. I did not know. Wow. Did not know that. Okay. Wow. No news on Erdogan. No. Haven't seen anything new on that today. More questions. When will summer start and the real fighting begin? One thing I was reading today. Well, okay. We think that one of the big issues for deciding when Ukraine really starts to fight back in this big counteroffensive they're planning is the weather. Because currently they're in the rainy season, winter, things kind of thaw out. There's a lot of water anyway from snow, but also the rain, the ground gets muddy and tanks and things don't work well on mud. So the tanks end up having to ride on the main roads, and the main roads, they're totally, naked. I mean, they're totally in the air and they can get blown up. Whereas if they're riding through forests and things, they're hidden, right? Spread out, this kind of thing. So the thinking is that Ukraine is at least going to wait until the ground starts to dry and we start, Gotditch. Okay. Got it. Ooh, that's a tough one. Gutditch. Okay. Um, so basically waiting for the ground to at least dry out to some degree. I did see a report today that said it might be starting to dry. At least one thing I remember seeing something that said, I know, bless you, it does sound like that. I remember seeing something that said it might be 2 weeks until it really dries out. Thank you, BJ Gator Girl, that it might be 2 weeks until it dries out. But, knowing the Ukrainians, they're very good at deflection, meaning, I told you guys this before, just to tell you again, but it was kind of wild. In the fall, when Ukraine, thank you. Who's that? Deadeye Jedi? That's a cute name. Thank you for that. In the fall, when Ukraine got back a lot of its territory in Kharkiv, right? They had convinced the Russians that they were going to be going for Zaporizhia. Now, Zaporizhia, eventually, people think Ukraine might go for, right? Again, Russia controls all of this. Russia itself is over here. Ukraine, the thinking is, may want to come here and cut the Russian-occupied territories in half. So this half and this half can no longer, communicate. They can no longer, supplies can't get here from here, et cetera, right? Or frankly, supplies come here across the bridge and go up here. Ukraine convinced the Russians last fall that it was going to attack Zaporizhia. So the Russians started moving a ton of their tanks and men from over here down here. Well, what happens? The Russians moved down here and the Ukrainians attacked up here. And they made their big push and got their land back. So the Ukrainians are very good at, I say deflection, but basically tricking the Russians into, we look like we're going to do this, but we end up doing this instead. So, let's see what happens. Let's see what happens. More questions. More questions. Do you think the reports of Putin's failing health, that they have safeguards in place to prevent a nuclear war? The thing is, Timothy, misdirection. There you go. I do not think that Putin dying or anything else is a threat to nuclear war or a threat of nuclear war. And here's why. Putin has already said that he wants to be Peter the Great. He wants to be seen as one of the great czars of Russia that helped expand Russian territory. And basically, I always use the Trump line, he wants to make Russia great again. Putin thinks, a lot of Russians think, that they were great and they were feared during the Cold War, during the Soviet years. And then when they stopped being the Soviet Union, nobody was scared of them anymore, right? And it's true. But they're also a lot weaker and everything else. Everything's not working well for the Russians right now. So Putin, especially, it's thought that was one of his big formative experiences of being really upset that they gave up the Soviet Union. Thank you, Stephen, for the groundhog. And therefore, on his deathbed, Putin does not want to be the guy that started a nuclear war that ended 97% of life in Russia, right? Or killed everybody on the planet. He wants to be the guy on his deathbed that made Russia great again, that expanded Russia, that got Russia Ukraine, or at least chunks of Ukraine, right? That put Russia back on the map of Africa and Latin America liking it or looking up to it, of the Americans and the Europeans having to fear it. That is the opposite of nuclear war. So I don't think so. I mean, that's what I'm saying. On his deathbed, there's just no reason on his deathbed that he'd say, let's nuke everybody, because he knows the Americans will nuke him back. And that's not what he wants. He wants to expand Russia. And basically, he wants to get away with it. He doesn't want war. He wants to get away with it without war. And so far, he is getting away with it without war, in the sense of without war with NATO. He's at war with Ukraine, but he's only quasi at war with us. Sorry. Musical Neptunian is saying, it's a part of Russian culture to rule by fear. There is a common Russian saying, if he fears me, he respects me. Yeah. I mean, that certainly seems, yeah. And he's ex-KGB. We know that anyway, right? He was a colonel in the KGB. We'll do a few more questions. That's interesting. V. Jader says, considering Biden's close affiliation with Ireland, do you think he would get the U.S. involved if they struck Ireland militarily at some point? Doesn't hurt. A president typically is going to make a decision based on the U.S. national interest, but personal relationships matter, which is something I've told you guys before, right? So Biden himself has a personal relationship with Ireland. He probably has good relations with the Irish Prime Minister, would be my guess. So, it wouldn't hurt that if the Irish were to come to him and say, "We need your help. The Russians attacking, or either attacked or are attacking." Thank you, Greg. I'm going to say, "Oh, great guy, great." I'm calling you Greg. Great guy, David. Thank you for the hat. If the Irish came to him and said, "We need your help," I think Biden would help. And there's a lot of Irish Americans. There's also a lot of Irish in Congress overall. I don't remember if it's the most in Congress of any ethnicity is Irish, but it's pretty strong as I recall. So he would want to help. Yes, I suspect he would. Also, it's a huge problem because, right, the Brits would, at the very least, the Brits would get involved. And if the Brits get involved, we get involved because we would probably help the Irish, but we would absolutely help the Brits, right? So in that case, I think we'd get involved anyway, right? They're coming for your Kerrygold. I know. That's the butter I use. It's the butter I use. Beep, 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 beep. Oops, hang on. Looking at more questions here. All right. I don't know that we've got many more questions here, guys. Any truth to Prigozhin calling for an end to the war and having troop buildup and fortifying the land they have now? This was something that I think he said previously. Institute for the Study of War reported on it, but I want to say it might have been a week ago. Prigozhin is the Russian oligarch, the billionaire that runs the Wagner mercenary group. And he, about a week ago or so, supposedly, I think said that he thought it would be smart for Russia just to dig in, take the land they've got, dig in, and I mean, literally, just stop fighting, stop wasting your men, stop wasting your ammunition, dig in and keep digging and digging and digging until it's impossible, in principle, impossible for the Ukrainians to push Russia out. But that there's, from his perspective, thank you, Brandon, for the hat there. From his perspective, there's no reason why keep trying to get more land when also, frankly, he's probably not wrong. At this point, it's not clear Russia can get more land, right? I mean, at this point, Russia's not really advancing. Russia should have taken all those new men they had, those 300,000 new men, and just poured them into Ukraine for defense and sat on their butt waiting for the Ukrainians to attack. Instead, Russia used them and got nothing, right? Maybe remember the number I gave you guys back? Someone did an analysis that in February and March, I think especially, which was like the big Russian pushback, the Russians expanded the amount of land they control in Ukraine by 0.04%. That's it, 0.04% more land with the 300,000 men that they spent and all the weapons and everything else. So it was stupid. Paul Gray, thank you, Paul, for that. Says Turkey's elections polls are a dead heat. That's what I had read. Yeah, I was reading yesterday. It sounds like the opposition leader, who now I was reading this and it's still a little confusing, but from what I was seeing, the opposition leader in Turkey is more pro-NATO in principle than Erdogan, although, Erdogan's kind of goes both ways. There was some mention of Sweden, but then I didn't see the quote I saw from the opposition leader kind of didn't mention, it almost looked like he was beating around the bush a little bit, like he didn't want to mention Sweden. But I think he was it's tied. He was, I think, 1 percentage point ahead in the polls. The Turkish presidential elections are May 14th, I think. The concern is that Erdogan will just try to throw them out or whatever to basically force a runoff or something. But at this point, if the guy is any better than Erdogan, it'd be nice, yeah, there you go. Turkish Secretary of Internal Affairs calls the upcoming election a coup attempt of the West. Of course he does. Mind you, the West. Who do you think you are? Like, you know what I mean? Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, we know. Okay, I don't know what Zero's trying to say. Like, everyone's aware that the Kurds are in Turkey. That's why Erdogan's so pissed off at you. That's not, yeah. Anybody who's up on foreign policy knows that. What else we got here? Roshan, you decide what you want to do there. Any news about the Russians and anthrax after they dug trenches through cattle cemetery? I didn't even see anything about that. I mean, lots of trenches I know, but I saw nothing about anthrax or anything about that. China, is China backing off or playing games? Maybe a little of both. I mean, look, we called China out. We pretty much caught that they were going to. No, well, let's see how it goes. I'm not reading as closely as you are. I'm 50-50. You decide. China, we know several months ago, at least from press reports, that the Chinese felt a little bit cheated by Putin. They felt like Putin tricked them, that they didn't really realize what they were getting into, that he made them think this was going to be some kind of a quick war. And of course, it's been 11 months and really bad, But at the same time, they're still on Putin's side. It sounds like the Chinese agreed several months ago to give Putin weapons, and then the U.S. called China out on it publicly and embarrassed them, and they backed off, right? So that's interesting. I don't know. I think China would love for Russia to have won the war. Russia's not winning it, so now they're kind of not sure what to do, and they're worried about their economy. They're worried about relations with Europe. They're probably still worried. They're even worried a little bit about America, even though, there's this loggerheads between us and China. We're a big export market for China, so that's a concern too. So anyway, I don't know. All right, guys, unless somebody's got something really big, I think I'm going to call it quits. I mean, I'll do the news summary. But I feel like we're slowing down a little here anyway, so I don't want to like drag it out too much. Yeah, I saw that. So Brave Cobra is raising on Twitch. What about the Russian base that got cleared in Crimea yesterday? CNN reported it, but I missed parts. Basically, there's a Russian base in Crimea that had a lot of weapons there, like, a month ago or a month and a half ago, whatever it was. And then several weeks ago, the weapons were gone. And the thing is, we don't really know. Thank you, Kanowski, for the guitar. We don't really know if that means Russia's worried about the counteroffensive and moving troops. I mean, we don't really know what it means, is the thing. I mean, I guess what I'm not going to do tomorrow mornings because I'm flying tomorrow. So we're not going to have the coffee talk tomorrow. We're going to skip it tomorrow. But it's, yeah, I'm not sure what to make of it because, we know Russia's worried about the counteroffensive. We know they would, why keep your weapons? Thank you, Kanowski, for the headphones. Why keep your weapons in a military base? Why not put them out there where they're needed? So anyway, I don't know. I've not seen anything convincing me that it's any kind of an, oh, wow moment or anything, Thank you, Harold, for the hat and mustache. So there. All right. I'm going to do the quick news summary. And then, you know what? We've got enough of you Twitchers here. When I finish the news summary, I want to hang out and talk to you can all hang, but I want to hang out and talk to the Twitchers for a minute about what I was talking about possibly turning on my subscription thing or whatever it's called on Twitch. But remember, that would mean I can't include Twitch in my daily broadcast. I would have to do a once a week one, maybe Saturday or something, where I would summarize the news of the week and take your guys' questions. But because I'd like to give it a chance, but Twitch will not let me include Twitch in this broadcast like I'm doing with you if it's the subscriber broadcast or whatever it's called, the possible paid one. So anyway, all right, guys, let me do the quick news summary. And then, as I said, I will be back Monday. I fly tomorrow to Chicago. I will be back Monday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time, US. Today's day 428 of Putin's 10-day special military operation. There was a horrific Russian military attack, a missile attack on a civilian apartment complex in Uman in central Ukraine, killing 23 people at least so far, including 4 children. 11 missiles and 2 drones flying towards Kyiv were shot down. Ukrainian forces also intercepted 21 of 23 Russian cruise missiles. Russian forces did not make any confirmed gains in or around Bakhmut on Thursday. Ukraine's defense minister says Ukraine's preparations for an upcoming counteroffensive are coming to an end. More from Stoltenberg. Stoltenberg, who's the... Nope. Sure, SB. SB wanted the map really quick before I go. No problem. You got the map. Stoltenberg, who's our Secretary General of NATO, says that NATO has now sent 1,550 armored vehicles to Ukraine and 230 tanks, I guess in preparation for the counteroffensive. Over 100 Ukrainian service personnel have started training on Leopard 1 tanks in Germany. Spanish defense minister confirms that 6 German-made Leopard 2 tanks are already in Poland on their way to Ukraine. A Russian colonel was arrested on suspicions of stealing 7 T-90 tank engines worth $258,000 and selling them on the black market. The Caesar self-propelled howitzers pledged to Ukraine by Denmark are already in use in Ukraine. Thank you for the gift there, Kanowski. The New York Times reveals that Amnesty International's board had sat for months on a report critical of the group after it accused Ukrainian forces of illegally endangering civilians in Ukraine. The report found that basically the review found that Amnesty's report was bogus, and Amnesty didn't tell anybody. Lovely. Slovak and Czech presidents were in Ukraine today for a surprise visit. The European Commission reached a deal with 5 European Union countries over Ukrainian grain imports. The United States has asked Brazil to extradite an alleged Russian spy. And the crackdown continues in Russia with Putin signing a law increasing the penalty for treason from 20 years to life in prison. All right, guys, let me talk to the Twitchers here. And final thing, as I said, I'll be back Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And please do check out my Discord. As I said, no more Patreon. If you're on Patreon, I would be very happy for you to unsubscribe and then resubscribe to Discord's own server subscription service, their own premium subscription service that I get a little bit more money and they're much nicer people because Patreon has been going after Ukrainian creators and they're going after me now. So it's just not, I cleaned up my account like they asked me to, but it's just not worth it. And I'm going to build up my Patreon even bigger just for Patreon to come after me again. It's just not worth it. So if you would, if you don't subscribe at all, if you don't, and you've been liking my reports for the last few months, go to Patreon. Don't go to Patreon. Go to Discord. You can find it via the link in my profile, the Linktree link. Click it. You guys can find it via the links at the bottom of the page there. Click it. It'll bring you to the page that offers you the options. And if the spirit moves you and you can afford it, maybe consider becoming a paid subscriber. It's once a month. If you can do it, I'd appreciate it. If you can't, it's okay. I appreciate it. But again, it helps my work a lot to know how much money's coming in because I do this for free and I'm doing it full time. So you guys are literally helping me do that. So thank you for that. All right, Twitchers, let's talk. I will leave you guys on if you want to hang out a little bit. But Twitchers, what do you think? I'm fine with Discord subscription. Oh yeah, if you can figure it out. All 8 of you remaining. Oh, is it only 8? Oh, it said more on my system here. Well, that's just to get your guys' feedback. But what do you think? Would people be too pissed on Twitch? We are a few and can probably find other ways to follow your live. However, if you do want to keep Twitch going on a weekly basis, you have my support. That's what I'm thinking. I just, my nephew was talking to me and I was like, you know what? I wouldn't mind doing that. It's not a bad idea. I would have to do a unique show for Twitch. I'm willing to do it to try. Supposedly, Twitch has like a really cool community for doing these kind of things. And I'm like, I'd be happy to try. Again, I kind of like having my weekends free, but nonetheless, I'd be willing. What I could do, which is not a bad idea, is doing a weekend review show like on Saturday or something. And that way I've got my notes from the week. I can sort of digest them into the most important stories for half an hour and do sort of the same thing saying, here's what happened in the last week. And here's kind of where things stand. And then we shoot the bull like we always do with you guys. So I think I'm going to try that. Okay. So let's try that. Anyway, like I said, as long as I see, and TikTok will never see my money. I know. Well, hopefully you guys can come via YouTube or somewhere else, if you don't mind. No. And like I said, I hate to cut you guys out, but maybe what I'll do is I won't start it immediately. Maybe in the next couple broadcasts, I'm going to keep repeating this so folks are aware. Thanks, Cobra. I appreciate it. So folks are aware. And then after several days of warning you guys, then I'll switch. Okay. People do prefer Twitch to play games, but you know what? It's worth a try. It's worth a try. Why not? Why not? Twitter, I do broadcast to Twitter anyway. But there's no charge for it, but I broadcast anyway to Twitter. Although Twitter is also making that harder too now. because one of my accounts just won't do it anymore. All right, guys. All right. Well, that's good. I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to warn you Twitchers a few more days in a row before I actually do apply. And then I'm going to apply. I'll cut it off. And then Saturdays I can do a Twitch broadcast, along with everything else that I do Saturdays. All right. TikTok does have the topic list. I know. All right, we'll figure it out. Okay, guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the gifts. You guys were very generous tonight. As I said, please do go, if you're on Patreon for me, unsubscribe on Patreon and resubscribe on Discord. Discord now, I'm not going to go to Discord tonight, I think. It's 7:20 already, and I've got to fly tomorrow, and I just kind of want to chill, because I've been sort of running. You can't imagine what I had to do today to get the subscriptions working on Discord. It was not fun. So I'd rather not, just because it was a hell of a, well, you know what? I shouldn't say that. Let's go to Discord. We'll go to Discord. I'll go to Discord for a short period. Okay. I'm not going to go till 8:00. Normally we go and we hang out an hour. I'll go and we'll hang out a little bit on Discord. Okay. Well, what the heck? Discord.aravosis.com. And as I said, guys, please do sign up for the paid Discord if you can afford it. I appreciate it, because it's not going to be as easy, Link Twitch to Discord too. I'm not sure what that means, Cobra. All right, first of all, let me say goodbye to you guys on TikTok first. Sasha's good. She's sleeping under my table. What do you mean, Cobra? All right, you guys, I'll say bye first, and then I'm going over to Discord. Yeah, Cobra, what did you like the Patreon? Is that a thing? I don't know that you can hook the two together. Can you? I don't know. I mean, Patreon, I know does, but I don't even know if it, I'd have to, I guess we could easily Google and see if Discord does. Yeah, I don't no idea. Well, I mean, we could just look really well. I'll look really quickly right now. And then, like I said, then we'll go over, well, hold on. I'll just say link Twitch. It's too bad because Patreon is a big service, but link Twitch to Discord. How to connect your Twitch channel to Discord. Open up the Discord app, and next to your username, under your settings, connections, connect your Twitch account to your Discord account. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so maybe it's possible. The thing that I've got to figure out is I don't understand how, I just don't like the different amounts of money and everything. I have no idea how subscriptions or whatever even work on Twitch. So like on Discord, I had to, Discord only lets you set up 3 categories, and I had 5 categories on Patreon. So I killed like the biggest category because I only had one guy doing it, and I didn't kill it. I mean, he's still there, but a lot of people don't pitch in $100 a month. So I killed that. And I took the 2 lowest categories, the $5 and the $10, which had a lot of people, and combined them to $1,750 or $7.99 is how they do it. Because I figured, okay, that makes sense. But so I'd have to look into it. First, I got to learn how Twitch works for subscriptions. And then if it does, if there's a way of the Twitch subscription somehow putting you into that cycle, we could do it. Yeah, let's see. But that would be pretty cool. And then, like I said, then we don't have to worry anymore. I'm just so pissed at the Patreon thing because I heard about them doing this to other people too. And it's just so anal. And it makes me wonder too. It makes me wonder whether it's, San Francisco liberal. Like, we don't want to be affiliated with wars. That would be evil. You know what I mean? It's got me wondering. So I'm not thrilled about them right now. No, you can't imagine it took me hours. And I had to go and connect 100 of you, because once I disconnected them, all of your subscriptions disappeared on TikTok. You were there. I'm on TikTok, on Discord. You were still there, but it got rid of all of your paid subscriptions. So I had to go through and manually put 100 of you back in, search for your account, pull it up, go in the thing, find which level I was losing my mind, absolutely losing my mind. And now as you cancel, I'll need to eventually go through and remove the other thing, but it's fine. Once we get it figured out. But it works. At least it works now. I mean, the Discord thing is actually my only other concern, I will tell you guys right now, so you'll know. My only other concern, I'll tell the Discordians, is it's still not entirely clear to me how this is going to work for the auctions, because I got the feeling like the current auctions are included, but I don't know if I create a new auction, whether it will automatically make it available to all the paid members. I don't know. We're going to find that one out next week. So, all right, let me sign off, guys. I'll go over to Discord and we'll hang out a little bit. I figured because since I played with Discord so much today, it's worth going over just to have a chat with folks, you know? So I'll go over right there. Anyway, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. I'm waiting a second to make sure it catches up. Okay, there we go.